Start recording.
Wayne, will you go ahead and read us into the meeting?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for participating in our remote meeting of the Administrative Committee. We have two formats for participation, the Zoom web application as well as teleconference. We ask that you please silence your other communication devices such as your cell or desk phone so that there aren't any disruptions during the course of the meeting. During the meeting, all participants on Zoom, except for board members and South Coast AQMD staff, will be placed on mute by the host. That means you will not be able to unmute or mute yourself manually. For those on Zoom, if you would like to make public comments on the Zoom screen, please click on the raise hand button. And if you're using Zoom on your smartphone, please tap the raise hand button on the bottom of the screen. For those calling in on the phone line only, you can dial *9 on your keypad to signal that you'd like to comment. Your name will be called when it's your turn, and the host will unmute your line automatically. Speakers may be limited to a total of 3 minutes for the entirety of the consent calendar plus board calendar, and 3 minutes or less for each of the other agenda items. A countdown timer will not be displayed, but we appreciate your thoughts in terms of moving forward. And if we ask that you adhere to decorum, please treat others with civility and respect. Failure to do so would be cause for removal. And with that, Mr. Chair, I turn it over to you.
Very good. Morning, everybody. And with that, we'll go ahead and take a roll call, please.
Good morning, Vice Chair Delgado. Absent. Mayor Pro Tem Cacchiotti.
Good morning, here.
Board Member Krakow. Absent. Supervisor Rutherford.
I'm here.
And Chair Benoit.
Here.
Board Member Krakow is here. He's able to speak now. If you can unmute.
Board Member Krakow, are you with us?
Board Member Krakow, your line's unmuted, so you should be able to speak. Ron?
Yes, I'm moved him over, and also he can dial in. I know his number, so he's back. Just a second.
Board Member Krakow is here.
Very good. All right, with that, we'll go right into the discussion items. Any board member concerns that anyone would like to bring up? We're jumping up and down. That's good. All right, we'll go on to the approved travel. Is there anything, Wayne, to report on that?
No, sir.
Didn't think so. And I'm guessing the same for out of country travel.
That is correct.
All right. On the September 3rd board agenda, does anyone have any comments or questions on that or concerns about the order of it or anything along those lines?
Nope.
Very good.
This is Gideon. I'm going to be off video today, but I am listening
All right, Gideon, do you have
and
any
participating.
Very good. Do you have any questions on item number 4, the board agenda?
No, Chair.
I have one question.
Sure.
And this probably happens every year, but this is the first time I've noticed it.
And the Uber driver's getting there and I'm still eating as I'm walking out.
11-240, the report to legislature and CARB on South Coast regulatory activities for the year. It says there's no committee review. Is that standard, or what's the reason we don't send that through committee?
Wayne, you want me to answer that?
Yeah, please, Derek.
Yeah, I believe that's a small business assistance report. And historically, it's always just gone straight to the board. If you like, we can bring it to committee also next year, but historically, it's just gone straight to the board.
curious. Don't know if a committee would have anything to add to it or not, but
And if of all the committees, it might be the local government sort of subcommittee. It's not really a committee, but just more of an advisory board. It would probably be the closest board where that would have come through. Would you like to hear a presentation on it there, Supervisor?
I'm wondering if it would be of value for that committee to hear, and if any input would affect the report that's given. If there's no input that can change anything, then it doesn't matter.
Derek, would that change the report at all, you think, or would there be any input there or need for Wayne?
I don't believe there's going to be any changes. Maybe not so much in the report itself, but maybe, maybe some grammar or something. But, what we've done with small business is what we've done. And unless we're missing items that they may want to add into that, that's something we can discuss. But if you like, we can take it to LGSBA next year.
If I could, Mr. Chair, let Derek and I caucus on this and do a review, and then let's come back to the committee next month with our recommendations.
Okay. And then my thought is for this year, we leave it alone and let it move forward. Is that right, Supervisor?
Yeah, that's fine. Maybe just share a copy of the report with that committee so they're familiar with it before they see it next year. Be great.
Absolutely.
Very good. With that, we'll go on to item number 5, the board member assistants. Are any separate covers for this, or any board member assistant add-ons, Wayne?
I'm actually going to look to Cindy.
I see her nodding
I-
yes. So
Yeah.
Yes. Vice Chair Delgado is adding a new consultant, and the package was provided, and there's a couple of consultants modifying their contract.
very good.
Yes, thank you. And just wanted to put for the record that I did join in a few minutes late. This is Vanessa.
Very good. We saw you join in. Thank you. All right. And unless anyone has any questions on those appointments, look for a motion on that.
Move approval, Chair Cacchiotti.
Oh, no.
Second.
Very good. I have a motion and a second. Will the clerk go ahead and call the roll?
I'm so sorry. Vice Chair Delgado,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cacchiotti,
Yes.
Board Member Krakoff,
Yes.
Supervisor Rutherford,
Rutherford, yes.
and Chair Benoit.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Very good. On to item number 6, our update on our AQMD's inclusion, diversity, and equity efforts. Dr. Hurd Johnson, go right ahead.
Thank you so much, Board Chair and members of the committee. Here is the August report for the Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion. Next slide. So as a part of a new diversity initiative we're starting at South Coast AQMD, we're having what's called Fabulous Female Fridays, and it's a way that we can increase our knowledge of the contributions that women have made to our society that are often overlooked. And so this month on August 1st was the birthday of Henrietta Lacks. And she was an African-American woman who tragically died of cervical cancer at the age of 31. But the cancer that killed her cells are still alive. They're called the HeLa cell, and they're the first immortalized human cell line. And they have been used to create so many things throughout scientific community. So they've done things like polio vaccines. They help to really investigate the Human Genome Project, leukemia, AIDS, HPV, and Zika. There are approximately 11,000 patents involving HeLa cells. And HeLa stands for the 2 initials for her first and her last name. It is tragic that this is one of the cases of a lack of informed consent in 20th century medicine because there was no permission taken or given to do that. But now that there is, obviously that wouldn't happen, but it is something that was egregious, and there's been a recognition to her family, recently been a recognition to her family for what she has really given us as a society. And Johns Hopkins has really acknowledged her as really one of the instrumental people in 20th century medicine. And so Henrietta Lacks. And so her birthday was August 1st. So I just wanted to share that with you all today. Thank you. Next slide. We will be having administrative code revision updates. So members of the EC are working to establish a timeline. The presentation, as was asked of last month, or last time we met, the sexual harassment code revisions will be presented by legal at the September administrative committee meeting. And then the DE office is working with creating language for the employee committee portion of the administrative codes. That's going to involve members of our employee groups and council members. And so we will be proposing those changes before December 21st. Next slide. Here is a draft list of all of our fall upcoming activities and events. So you'll see it's quite populated. This will be virtual events, again, keeping in mind the Delta variant. So we're very excited. We're working with all of our different employee resource groups to provide these learning opportunities for members of the South Coast AQMD community. Next slide. We also have our upcoming Office of Diversity and Equity book club. We've chosen The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein. And so really why we're doing a book club is to install common language and understanding of DEI issues and concerns relative to South Coast AQMD. And I think especially with our AB 617 communities, this book would be quite relevant to those. And we'll have a different book selected 3 times a year. So currently the book on order. And so as soon as we get them in, we'll distribute those to our staff to be able to participate. And they'll meet once every 2 weeks for about 2 months. Next slide. We're also starting what is our monthly think tanks on the 3rd Thursday of every month. And what these are basically different videos, TED Talk videos, and they're meant to increase critical thinking around diversity issues for all of our staff. So anyone who's interested in really, excuse me, doing a deep dive around an equity related issue, we'll have these meetings and the setup is 15 minutes webinar. And then you go into breakout rooms and you do some case study and some group talk. And then you come back for a large discussion. Our August selection will be on how to be a better ally in the workplace. And so that's on August 19th and during lunch hour. So it's something that folks can jump in on. Next slide. We'll also provide monthly training for members of our employee resource groups, of which we have several, but this is really meant to go a little deeper on some of the different social justice concepts. And so these monthly trainings are the 4th Friday of every month, and it's meant to really increase people's knowledge, skills, and abilities to be able to navigate their circumstances within their positions. Next slide. We also have our monthly council. This is our year 2 of the IDEA panel. So the IDEA panel, when it was created, was really to make recommendations. Now they're moving into action items. And so that'll be, we're right now, working with each of the divisions to select division reps. Those will be selected by Wayne, and we will start meeting in September. And really just addressing agency-wide diversity issues and to develop an agency-wide diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic plan. Next slide. As I mentioned before, we've had several new employee resource groups because they really add to the cultural capital of our agency. So our new groups that we've added are allies and advocates, our LGBTQIA, our Persian, and our veterans groups. They're currently reviewing the proposed diversity, equity, inclusion strategic plan for the upcoming year. I meet with all of them next week to get their feedback on that. And that includes structures for their groups, that includes events, community service, just all the things that we want to do for the upcoming year. So we start meeting with those folks next week to get feedback on our plan. Next slide. And then just what's going on for me at the upcoming month. I've been working with each of the members of the Executive Council to develop an Equity Roadshow, which is me and my team going to their different divisions to talk about different diversity subject matters and trainings. And then we also are actually doing the process to hire 2 more staff members within our area for a senior public information specialist. And that's where we're at. So any comments or questions?
Very good. Comments and questions from the board?
Board Member Krakow?
Go ahead.
Thank
Oh, Board Member Krakow, we lost you. I think you might have muted back again. Go ahead. Oh,
Can you hear me?
now we can. Go ahead.
Yes, Ms. Hart Johnson, thank you so much for the presentation. There seems to be so much going on, and it's terrific and so healthy for this organization. And we want as meaningful and effective as possible. So I know you're talking to some of the board members beforehand, and maybe just encourage perhaps the board chair just to make sure that he has an understanding of what's in store for that day, when it's possible. So it might be helpful maybe to give, again, I'm not trying to volunteer you, Ben, just a sense of what we're getting. I know I'm going to be talking to you as well. Maybe it's more about general issues as opposed to the agenda for that discussion, but do want to make sure that folks find that meaningful and that you get out of it what you need from the board. So it might be good to sort of vet the agenda with the board chair, just an idea, but very much looking forward to that. And thank you for this presentation, and I look forward to getting those policies as well in September and the remainder of the year.
I will just thank you. You cut out for a little bit, but what I did hear is vetting the agenda for the retreat. And so I know that Wayne is going to be meeting with all of us. I know there's some concerns about whether that's going to be in person or not, but I'll let Wayne speak to that. And I think we're looking at an adjustment of the schedule. So we're definitely on board. And I think that Chair Benoit will have all of that information, if that's what I kind of got from that.
And I think the other aspect that Board Member Krakow was asking about was just in general, as we do these kind of efforts, trainings and the like, just make sure that the chair is apprised and that others have an opportunity, if appropriate, to participate. And we'll certainly keep the chair apprised.
Great, thank you. And yeah, keep me apprised, but also I know some of our board assistants even want to participate, and other staff members. So I think this is a great opportunity for that too. So
we will do so.
We have a public comment hand up. Barbara, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's for the admin committee here. It's the items 1 through 9. The public commenter would have an opportunity for 3 minutes the total for all those, and then also again then for 10 through 16, as well as general public comment.
Yes, we've done that practice in the past, broken it up into discussion items and action items, 3 minutes each, and then the general public comment period.
Very good. With that, we'll go ahead and take public comment. I see a hand raised for Henrietta. Harvey, you have 3 minutes to speak to items 1 through 9, or if you want to take them a little less of that, then that you can, but I'm assuming you're going to want 3 minutes on those.
Hello, am I being heard?
You are. Go right ahead.
Yes. Okay. Good morning. My name is Harvey Etter. I'm speaking for myself and for the Public Solar Power Coalition and all the citizens and folks that like to see and in a just solar transition ASAP. There's a lot of stuff going on, Johnson, and that's good. And Mr. Krakow, I'm interested in, I understand you've got a background in this I wasn't aware of till recently. We wrote the first report of this in 1980-81 for the PUC, the Low Income Solar Equity Program. And that was the first time that 10% was put out. It was $184 million. So we put in taxing through the rate system. And anyway, okay, what I want to get into is this woman that you gave out about using the gene. Okay, there's a guy named Yoel Noah Harari, okay, Hebrew University. He's a historian. He's got 3 books, one called Sapien. All right, he said the big problems is, and he took 2 of these from the physicists. Anyway, he said the first is existential problems, nuclear war, and second is climate change, and that's what's before us now. Now they've added to it AI, information technology, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, and biology, genetic engineering. Duda in October got the Nobel. Jennifer out of Berkeley, and he said this is the dangerous stuff, killer robots, and what are we going to agree? This guy has our conversation with Zuckerberg, with a woman who's head of the European financial system. Gates, all this stuff. Okay, so he's out there. He's written 3 books. The first one, Sapien, sold 8 million copies, etc., etc. He's gay. He's a historian, and this perspective should be brought to all the entities, but especially this group, in reference to humanitarianism and our human nature and whatnot, and understanding. And I think this is very important, and we'll put it in the record along with his books. So, and I want to keep I don't know what the hell's on this. I want to keep a minute or so to talk on other things because I don't know what's coming up. All right. So I'm cutting off now. Hopefully I got a minute left for something else.
Thank you, Harvey. You have about 30 seconds left, but we'll go on to the next couple items. If you want to raise your hand on items 7 through 9, you'll have that half a minute left for that. All right. Any other board member comments or questions on this item? Not seeing any. Thank you very much. All right, with that, we'll go on to item number 7, the budget and economic update. Joe, why not? Go right ahead.
Good morning, Chair Benoit. There really is not an update since the report that I gave last Friday, but if there's any questions, I'll be happy to take them. Thank you.
Very good. Any board member questions? Not seeing any hands raised. I'll go ahead and go on to item number 8, the ongoing projects for the IT for Ron Moskowitz. Ron, go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Benoit, members of the committee, Ron Moskowitz, Chief Information Officer. We went live with the WARE program online portal. My IT team worked closely with planning and to develop the online portal, which began to accept warehouse operators notifications on August 6th. The filing deadline for this report is September 1st. And we also went live with the lawn and garden battery incentive program. This new and improved site will make it easier for companies and independent contractors to learn about and sign up for incentives towards electric lawn and gardening equipment. Our mobile app is at 48,670 installs, and I'm pretty confident we'll break 50,000 by the end of the year. Everything else is going great, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Very good. Any board member questions, comments?
Mr. Chair?
Go right ahead.
What wasn't Ron? That's the warehouse owners notification, right? I think you said operators.
Correct.
Thank you.
Very good. All right. Thank you, Ron. And thank you to the team. Keep up the good work. All right. Our next item is the fiscal year 2020 and 2021 fourth quarter ending report. Sujata, go right ahead.
Good morning, Chair Benoit and members of the committee. Sujata Jain, Chief Financial Officer. This is our fourth quarter fiscal year 2021 budget versus actual presentation. Next slide, please. So in this presentation, I will cover firstly just a summary of the 2021 fourth quarter budgeted versus actual results. These are unaudited numbers. We are just going through our audit. I don't expect too much change, but still, I just wanted to point that out. And then we have a revenue comparison, similarly an expenditure comparison, and then based on the results, we have an updated 5-year projection. Next slide, please. So the summary is showing, just as a reminder, we had our adopted budget for fiscal year 2021 at 173 million revenues and expenditures. There were amendments throughout the year that were board approved. And then our actual results came in with revenues being at 176.6 million and expenditures at 171 million. Next slide, please. So here is a revenue comparison. And what we are doing here is pulling the fourth quarter 1920 so that we can compare it to the fourth quarter 2021, just as a benchmark. And you can see that the first 3 revenue categories, these are our stationary sources. And combined, these 3 revenue sources bring in about $101 million. So you can see that within these 3 categories, we were pretty much what was budgeted. And when we compare it to the prior fiscal year, once again, we are pretty much hitting the $100 million mark. However, within the annual operating fees and the permit fees, there is some, permit fees came in lower, annual operating as showing higher. When we were developing the budget back when the pandemic hit, it was difficult to say which one would be, showing lower. And as the year progressed, we were reporting that the permit fees were coming in less. So these permit fees could potentially bring down our operating fees in the next fiscal year, which is the fiscal year we are in, and we will be keeping a very close eye on that. On the next category is the mobile source transportation, and that category was less than the budgeted amount, and it was because of less activity there. And then the other category, it was higher because there was more activity in the AB 617 grant activity. Area sources and transfers in are pretty much in line what was budgeted. Next slide, please. On the expenditure side, once again, we are seeing that as compared to last fiscal year, we are pretty much where we ended last fiscal year at 92% of budget, and this year 94%. But then I just want to point out that in the salaries and benefits category, we did have savings, and that is mainly because we have been reporting throughout the year that our vacancy rate was higher than what was budgeted. We were at an average of about 17% compared to 13% budgeted. And then salaries and supplies also, there was a lot of savings because we were pulling back and just being cautious. There were savings in travel, building maintenance, office supplies, and lab supplies, and those kind of things in contracts. So, capital and debt service and transfers out were pretty much in line with what was budgeted. Next slide, please. So based on these results, we have a 5-year projection, and we are seeing that in our 5-year projection, our 5th year looks better than the 20% mark that we are usually supposed to be at. And there are still some uncertainties as we go through this next fiscal year. And those can be, like I had mentioned, the revenues, because our permits were down this entire fiscal year. That could factor into lower annual operating fees. So we have to monitor that very closely. Also, we do have, and that's mainly because we lag behind. We do have retirement cost uncertainties, and although SB Sarah has done very well this year, we won't know exactly how that will impact our contributions. Our actual valuation comes out in December, so we will be seeing maybe there is some downward trend towards our contributions, but everything gets smoothed out over 5 years. So, the impact of either good year or a bad year, that's kind of, it might wash out. But we will wait to see what those numbers are. There's also labor cost uncertainties and—
Ms. Jane?
Yes.
When does that report come out from SB Sarah?
It comes out in December, typically, Board Member Krakow. It is an actual valuation that's done every year.
Thank you.
And yes, and then there are labor cost uncertainties, and so those have not been factored in. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Any other board member questions or comments? I do see a hand raised by Harvey Etter. Harvey has 30 seconds left on these items, so if we could go ahead and— oh, I see the timer's already set up. Harvey, you have 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay. With the report from Jill Wynot at the last meeting, I said that I'd like to hear, and I think you would like to see variables. The worst case scenario. Okay, we're going back into the Delta now. The numbers are all changed. Everything's changing around, and the economy's changing. Incorporating by this Dr. Wolf out at UMass, emeritus professor of economics. made these comments that, you know, this is not going to be a breakout like the end of World War II. We're competing with China and Europe.
Thank you, Harvey, and I think we're all curious to see where everything's going to go here in the next couple months. But thank you, Sujata, for that report.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll go on to the action items, 10 through 16. Our first one is for Ron, for the IT department again. Go ahead, Ron.
Good morning again. This is a standard request to amend contract to provide short and long-term systems development, maintenance, and support services. These companies were selected as part of the RFP process approved by the board on April 2nd, 2021. The funding is available in our budget, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Any board member questions on this? Ron, do you want to also give us a report for item number 11? It looks like a similar, but this is for the Office 365, and maybe we can take these as a combined item.
Yes, this is a standard request to authorize the purchase of Microsoft Office 365 online, licensing for 2 years. Funding is available in our budget, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
You have any questions on that item?
I move approval.
Second, Cacchiotti.
That's a motion for item 10 and 11, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Clerk, go ahead and call the roll for those two items.
Vice Chair Delgado,
Oh, just a second. We do have Harvey Edder's hand up for that. Harvey, you have 3 minutes total for these items 1 through 16 or 11 through 16. If you'd like to go ahead and take them now.
Hello, I'm assuming I can be heard, but I'll only take part of my time. I don't know what's up. On this thing with Microsoft, now I don't understand. We're using their operating system, and I think when we make questions and comments, there should be, if not in the amendments to the new Brown, that it should allow for questions to be answered and responded to, and not just public comment. All right, and that's important to this process, especially remote as we are now. I'm going to reserve more time, but I don't understand this thing with Microsoft, big tech, all this, whatever's going on. How's it going to affect our little part of the world here? Continue comments on 12 through 16, etc. later.
Thank you, Harvey. Barbara, is there some requirement to respond to the questions? Is that a new Brown Act requirement?
There's not been a requirement to respond to comments, or respond to questions when staff is able to. We frequently do as a courtesy, but it's not part of the Brown Act, no.
Okay. I didn't believe it was, but Harvey, this is software that it's a little less the operating system. This is everything's gone into the cloud now. So this is software, so all of our employees can operate either from their phone or their other devices on the cloud. So, all right, with that, we have a motion and a second. Would the clerk go ahead and call the roll?
Vice Chair Delgado,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cacchiotti,
Yes.
Board Member Krakoff,
Yes.
Supervisor Rutherford,
Yes.
and Chair Benoit.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Very good. We'll go into item number 12, the RFP for legislation for, legislative representation for Washington, D.C. Derek Alatorre, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Benoit. Good morning, Chair and committee members. As you're well aware, South Coast has representation in Washington, D.C. to seek policy and funding through the administration and Congress. The current contracts for federal representation will expire on June 14, 2022. This item seeks permission to issue an RFP to solicit proposals for legislative representation in Washington, D.C. And that'll be for initial one-year contract with option of extending for 2 one-year periods. Staff recommends approval.
Very good. Board members, comments or questions on this item? So just to issue the RFP. Not seeing anyone jumping up or down. Any public comment on this item?
No.
All right, we'll go ahead and take a motion and a second on this.
I'll move approval, Mr. Chair, of staff's recommendation.
I'll second that.
Very good. Would the clerk go ahead and call the roll?
Vice Chair Delgado,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cacchiotti,
Yes.
Board Member Krakoff,
Yes.
Supervisor Rutherford,
Yes.
and Chair Benoit.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Very good. We'll go on to item number 13, to appropriate funds for consultant services. And this is another item for Derek. Derek, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Again, good morning. As most of you are aware, back in 2020, Governing Board approved the expansion of the clean air programs for elementary school children, as well as the Why Healthy Air Matters program, and extended the implementation for an additional 3 years, beginning October 1, 2020. At the same time, the board did direct that 20% of the annual penalty monies received in excess of $4 million be from the general fund be appropriated to this program. However, sufficient penalty funding is not available for CAPES or WHAM this fiscal year, based on this formula. Staff recommends a transfer of about $1.36 million from the BP ARCO funds to fund the CAPES program until June 30th, 2022. I'm available to answer any questions.
Very good. Any questions, anyone?
I do. I got a couple of questions.
I'll go ahead and defer to the supervisor first. I think she popped up first. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. When the board discussed this, our goal was really to make sure that these programs are available to as many schools as possible by having them up on the website and really encouraging schools to go use there. I'm wondering what sort of measurements we're doing to see how many schools are taking advantage of that, if we do any way to measure what kids are learning or how they're implementing what they're learning, or are we just kind of putting this out there and not knowing how it's affecting students.
So yes, there's a couple things that we're doing. The first matrix is actually, I believe it was you, supervisor, that requested that these programs be available to as many students as possible. As you said, we did create 4 WHAM videos. We're in the process of getting the CAPES finalized and WHAM finalized, but we will have 4 up on the web as soon as they're finalized internally. That's the first thing. The second thing is regarding making sure that how are we quantifying how many schools have participated. We actually have the schools, we reach out to the schools. They do say whether they, or the classrooms I should say, they say whether they want to participate. And we actually have either staff teach the program, or the teacher themselves will teach the program. We also have, after each program or each lesson, we have an evaluation by the teachers and by the students to get their feedback. Some teachers are using this as, besides a teaching tool, but also meeting some of their requirements for, such as the AP program, but they also have their own tests that actually WHAM does help out in teaching a certain portion of, as an example, the AP classes have a environmental component to the program. So that's basically how we're doing it. We're always open to other ideas, but right now that's what we have.
So how many, well, you're saying we don't have the components online yet?
Right now, no, they're not approved yet.
I think that's something the board would like some report back on, is once we get it up, how many schools or how many classrooms are taking advantage of this,
sure,
versus the ones where our staff is going out and teaching them. Because I think if there's one positive line that came out of COVID, it's that schools and students are now really used to doing self-contained units online, and we can reach a lot more people that way. So I'd like to see us really focus and encourage that.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because it was brought up about how are we going to be able to track what classrooms have just pulled the lessons off the web. And we have some ideas, but we're still vetting them and see if that's the best way. Because once you put it up on the web, you really don't have, you can see how many people visited it, but you don't really know how many people have actually taught the class. So we're trying to figure out a way to control that so that we can get a good number as to how many people are actually participating in it.
I know it's not going to be precise, but I know there are tools that can measure how many people have watched a full video and that sort of thing. And then we should also make sure that we're also targeting homeschools and the charter schools, And then I'm thinking, you know, I have a young man in Boy Scouts and they've got environmental badges, and this could be a great component for scouts or for school clubs to also take advantage of the educational materials. So let's not think of it narrowly as kids sitting in a classroom.
Great ideas. Thank you very much.
And along those lines, Derek, you mentioned try to make it more controlled, but I'm, Supervisor brought up that you can just see how many people watched it. I think that's a perfect metric in my mind, because again, then it's less control, but it's more out there. People are allowed to just watch it when they need to, and I think that's a more important thing than knowing exactly how many. So I'll take a little bit more softer metric, but as the supervisor said, just knowing how many people watched it, I think will be a huge thing for all of us to see.
Sounds
Mr.
great.
Chair, if I could add, I think what I'd like to do is sit down with Derek and with Ron and Jill. And I think that there are ways that we can actually track who accesses the website, so we can get a sense of how many people are at least looking it up, and then see if we can do some kind of response with regards to download and utilization, and then follow up with surveys to those that have done that. So we'll have to check with Ron, just check on what the budgeting and things like that, but I think we can answer those questions. So let us look a little bit more into it. And thanks, Supervisor, for the great suggestions. I know you've got some Scoutmasters and former Scoutmasters on the executive team, so we think that's a great idea too. We're all for it.
I think Board Member Krakoff was the other member that might have spoke up a minute ago. Is that correct?
Supervisor Rutherford asked my question.
Oh, very good. I have Board Member Caciotti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, just curious, staff had indicated, Derek, that staff was teaching, which is great. Just curious, what's the consultant doing? I know we've put a lot of money out. I'm curious, I hope they're out there teaching too. Just so as we're doing these metrics, we measure what the consultant's doing, and what, I'm just curious.
Sure. So they're actually going out to the schools, both not so many on the visits right now because of COVID, but they're reaching out to schools, to the school districts, to the principals, and even to the teachers to get them to adopt this and teach it in their classrooms. It is a lot of work. There's no question. I mean, it's classrooms now. So actually when they go to a school, in some schools, it's taught in more than one classroom, but you have to go and talk to each teacher after the district and the principal give the okay. But it's a lot of work, and they're also doing social media too. They're actually having different opportunities for teachers to get on, I believe it's on a webinar to talk to them about it. But it is a tremendous amount of work, because it's a 4-county region that they're responsible for.
Derek, what I'd like you to do is find out when they're going to one of the schools. As a former teacher and coach, still coaching, started just practice last week. I'd like to go and observe, and I'm hoping they're putting together the video. I'd like to see how they're putting that together.
Sure. We did. We just finished for the WHAM program. We just finished taping the first 4. In year 2 for them, they're going to have to do an additional, I believe it's 2 or 3 more. So once we do that, we actually did it here at the district, the actual filming, and we had staff members actually teach the lessons. So it's a great opportunity. I was down there to watch a couple of times, and it's amazing what our staff does, and they're good. They're actually good, really good teachers.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Good. Vice Chair Delgado, you have your hand up?
Yes, I just wanted to actually add on to what the supervisor said. That was perfect. And I actually got some unsolicited advice on this on Twitter. I posted about the WHAM program, and a principal replied back that her teachers loved it, that they used it during COVID, but could we provide like a curriculum sheet that they could use in addition? And I think that's a great way to see if people are using it, because maybe you can require teachers to download, put their name, and they can download a mini little curriculum and
Yes.
like a homework sheet. And then for the little kids, I know they all love that like Air Ranger certificate thing. Maybe they get that for the capes or something. But anyway, I just wanted to pass on that advice that I got from the one principal, but she absolutely loved it.
Yeah, we did. In the first 2 years, we were using it's Sonoma Technologies curriculum, and we're just in the process of actually finalizing our own curriculum that we're going to be using. And we've received tremendous input from the different departments into our curriculum. So we're going to introduce actually a whole new curriculum outside of Sonoma Technologies. And there are worksheets on there and things for the teachers to utilize and the students, as well as experiments.
That's wonderful.
Mr. Chair, one more comment.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Derek. I know when I brought this up a couple years ago, we were talking about this. I want to ensure they're bringing in actual, things you can touch like electric cars, hydrogen fuel cars, electric lawnmowers, things like that. So
yeah,
hopefully they're doing that. And again, that's why I want to really go and look and watch what's happening on the ground.
Yeah, right now, this past year, school year, we literally just taught online, and there was no opportunities for that. This coming year, again, depending on how the pandemic rolls out and continues, that may be we may be limited as to whether we actually do in person, but any opportunity we have, we will definitely do that.
Thank you.
Very good. I do see a public comment raised a hand again. Harvey Etter, you have some time left. If you'd like to take your time now, we'll go ahead and unmute you. Or if we can get that timer up.
Okay. I'm all for WHAM and educating kids. I was a kid. When I was 9 years old, I had pneumonia right here in River City, and it was real bad. And anyway, this COVID that's out there, we got to tell the kids to have no vaccines. There's a pneumonia vaccine. There's a P13, P23. It's been around 20 years. Okay. 90% of the people that get pneumonia, and that's what they die from COVID. Okay. Now we've got the vaccine. We can use it for the kids. We've got 20 years experience. That's something to network out. I put a call into the woman who's head of the 1.7 million teachers union that was on the talk shows, and her husband's a rabbi, by the way. Anyway, so I had the first local job in solar education in the state in 77, 78. The solar education specialist for the energy conservation program, about 20 folks. I had the only solar job, and taught it at the community college and whatnot to our staff. And we set up educational programs. Okay. So this is great, but I want to make sure climate's in there. Okay. And this report that just came out from IPCC, and it's going to be the AR6, that's got to be included for this stuff. And we got to try to get this stuff for vaccines that are existing to offer this option. It's not been, we've gone to CDC, FDA and stuff, and we need some networking and some help. And this is people's own flesh and blood. All right. So I think it's important and needs to be looked at, and data collected on it and everything. And in general, for minorities of people that are dying, most and poor people, that a lot of them don't get these shots, and that we can look through the death certificates and whatnot and study this, and that this is stuff that Joe K should have been doing. All right. So let's continue. Let's expand. I like the thing about touching and all this and building stuff too. We are the inventor of the aluminum can, Lars's beer can, and pop can solar collector. It'll get steam 300-400 degrees on a flat plate. You can get hot water and stuff. And anyway, you can run heat engines and run your electric vehicles. Okay. So let's show them what can be done. And this, they said it was a code red in this UN report, and the jet stream's slowing down. I've been talking to Aaron Katzenstein about this, and that's what's happening with these big heat and all this stuff going on.
Thank you, Harvey. And that concludes our time to item number 17. So we'll go ahead and probably have more public comment from me. I'm sure just general public comment. With that, does anyone have any other questions on this item? If not, we'll look for a motion. Move it along.
Move approval, Mr. Chair Caccioti.
Second.
Very good. Will the clerk call the roll?
Vice Chair Delgado,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Caccioti,
Yes.
Board Member Krakoff, Board Member Krakoff,
Yes.
Supervisor Rutherford,
Yes.
and Chair Benoit.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Very good. Real quick, before we go on to the next item, I forgot to bring up back on item number 1, a board member concern. I wanted to bring it up again. I brought it up at the last general meeting. I talked about the MATES, when we talked about the MATES 5 study. I'm concerned how late that sort of seemed to come out. And I want to make sure, Wayne, that we don't lose track of the next MATE study coming up and make sure that we get started when we need to on that and appropriately get whatever resources are needed to be there, just in case another 617 type item comes up from the state. We don't want to get distracted and not get our other duties done too. So just sort of keep that in mind as we move forward. If there's anything we need to do to make sure that that happens, I'd like to know. So
Will do.
very good. Since I went back down number one, anyone else have any other concerns that they might have forgotten from earlier?
No, sir.
All right, with that, we'll go back to item number 14, appropriate funds for planning and organizing and facilitating South Coast Martin Luther King Day of Service and Cesar Chavez Day. And I believe Lisa is taking this item, correct?
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Benoit, Vice Chair Delgado, and committee members. This item is to appropriate funds for consultant services to plan, organize, and facilitate South Coast AQMD's Martin Luther King and Cesar Chavez Day of Remembrance events. Due to a delay in executing the contract, the previously approved governing board approved appropriation reverted to the general fund. So today we're seeking to authorize the previously approved 2020-2021 funds to be appropriated in this fiscal year 2021-2022 budget. The total amount for the 3-year contract is $450,000 at a rate not to exceed $150,000 per year for the 2 events. These events have helped brand South Coast AQMD and spread air quality and environmental justice awareness in our region, and staff recommends approval for this previously approved board-approved appropriation. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Board Member Krakow, I see your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I really enjoy these events and do believe that they are very important to our mission. I participated since I've been appointed to this board in the events that took place. However, you know, the events did occur during COVID. And although it was an excellent event, the Chavez event, in my recollection, it had very anemic participation on Zoom. It's very hard to do these events online, but I would also imagine it's not the same kind of event, and maybe there are monetary savings and other things. So I just want to make sure that our staff is paying attention to what it's like to do these events on Zoom, whether Leandra's group is excellent, whether the same amount of budget is needed when you're not doing them in person, and whether we're, with the money we're spending here, finding ways to make the events a success on Zoom, in light of the fact that they are not in person because of COVID. And perhaps that's the way it's going to continue for a while. I just don't know. But I do want us to be paying attention to it, given the amount at issue in these contracts.
We will do that. You know, we were planning on, you know, as of about a month or 2 ago, we were planning on in-person, both MLK and Cesar Chavez. But again, as Wayne said, as things change, we will reevaluate them as they come. So, but there is still some logistical issues when it comes to, you know, the hybrid is not as much, but definitely if we're going to move to the in-person.
Chair, I'd just like to add, I think that Board Member Krakow, when he said the attendance was anemic, was looking at just the Zoom aspect. The important thing to remember is that it was also broadcast on YouTube Live. And so the numbers were actually much higher than what we had been seeing, because I know I shared that concern as well. And then once we looked into it. So I just wanted to make that clear that while you may have only seen it on Zoom, there was much greater participation on YouTube.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that. That's good to hear.
Yep.
There were actually 200 viewers and participants in that event.
Yeah, I know we had a lot of staff there though too, but okay, thank you.
Very good. Supervisor Rutherford?
She almost answered my question. I was asking what the actual numbers are and how do we know how many were members of the public? Yeah, so that the board can determine if this is the best use of those funds to do public outreach.
So for Zoom, We know which attendees are staff based on their addresses. And so we track that, and we actually, I believe, removed that from the overall 200 number. So I believe that we were looking at 200 views via Facebook Live, YouTube, and then the Zoom participants.
So it's 200 total non-staff.
That's what I understand, yes.
Okay.
The other ones that they do help us out on, as an example, the last Environmental Justice Conference, we had over 700 people participating also. And, but again, I think you made a very, a good suggestion, and to keep on monitoring it, because you're right, it does cost us less if we do it, via Zoom or online, but we just never know what the future is going to lie with regards to COVID and what what is going to be allowed. So, but we'll keep an eye on that.
Mr. Chair?
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. I share those same concerns. I've raised it a couple times, and again, they're a great organization, a great consultant, contractor. But again, Derek, as things change in the economy and COVID, if you can monitor that, or maybe in our contracts with them, we have a provision that does outline that, Barbara, that if certain things happen, I'm not sure what their metrics are. They've got to fulfill for the 150,000 a year, and only 200 people. That's almost $1,000 a person. So I share supervisors get everybody's concerned. So please monitor that closely. That's a lot of money we're giving out that I'm concerned about.
Will do.
All right, so I think staff's heard all those concerns, and we'll work forward to that. But for this item right now, we do need a motion if we're going to move forward.
Move approval.
Second.
Very good. I don't see any other hands raised except for Harvey. Harvey, you've already expended your 3 minutes on this section of the board calendar. So we're going to go ahead and go to the vote. Roll call, please.
Vice Chair Delgado,
Sorry, yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cacchiotti,
Yes.
Board Member Krakoff,
Yeah, I appreciate staff keeping in mind this discussion today. Yes.
Supervisor Rutherford,
Yes.
and Chair Benoit.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Very good. We'll go on to item number 15, the report for RFPs and RFQs. Go ahead, Sujata.
Yes, good morning, Chair Benoit and members of the committee. This is an item to release RFQs for the purchase of the Cisco Unified Communication Technology upgrade, and also to issue an RFP for the purchase of telecommunications services. Happy to answer any questions on that.
Very good. Does anyone have any questions on these two items, or item 15?
Move approval.
Let's go ahead and hold that for a quick second. We'll go to item 16 and take the report on that real quick too. My guess is it'll be both of these can go together. So John, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. John Olvera, Deputy Executive Officer for Administrative and Human Resources. This item involves several actions to address operational needs, and starting with revisions to this year's budget by way of adding and deleting positions. In the Planning Division, this item would move the Area Sources Compliance Unit over to the Compliance and Enforcement Division for consistency and efficiency purposes. In addition to that, a new Senior Enforcement Manager is being added to Compliance to oversee that unit. For Science and Technology Advancement, the BACT group is proposed to be moved to the Engineering Division. And in addition, a chemist and an administrative secretary position are being added to the laboratory, and a vacant manager position is being reassigned. These position changes are being offset for budget purposes by deletions of vacant positions. And finally, in terms of budget revisions, a senior public information specialist position is being added to ALPAM to help with outreach and education for the new indirect source rule for warehouses. And in addition, a vacant clerical position in human resources is being upgraded. The second part of this item regards director positions. First, there's a director position for the lab that was added in this year's fiscal year budget, but the salary resolution was not amended to reflect this. So there's an administrative change being proposed. And second, the current single position for the Health Effects Officer / Director of Community Air Programs is being split into 2 separate director positions, and the duties and responsibilities are being divided accordingly. And this reorganization of functions, we believe, will benefit critical programs such as AB 617 and air quality assessment. And finally, this item will make various title changes, and primarily the secretary designation in a number of administrative positions is being replaced with the terms administrative assistant or executive assistant, which are more consistent with modern business technology. And there's an existing administrative assistant classification that is being renamed to administrative analyst, which is more fitting to its function in the executive office. And finally, the senior public information specialist position will be titled Senior Public Affairs Specialist, which again better reflects the duties of those in those positions. Funding for these amendments, which add 2 net positions and a cost of about $571,000, is being requested from the general fund's undesignated fund and will be requested in future budget. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Does anyone have any questions on this item? Not seeing any board members' hands raised.
I'm happy to amend my motion for 15 and 16 to move approval.
Very good. And
Second.
Oh, very good. We have a motion and a second for 15 and 16. Would the clerk go ahead and call the roll?
Vice Chair Delgado,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cacchiotti,
Yes.
Board Member Krakoff,
Yes.
Supervisor Rutherford,
Yes.
and Chair Benoit.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Very good. Thank you, Roy, for allowing us to combine a couple of these items. We have a written report attached, item 17 from our local government small business assistance advisory group. Anyone have any questions on that? All right. Any board members have any other business they'd like to bring up? Not seeing any. We have our general public comment. I'm sure Harvey, you would like to take 3 minutes to talk about general public comment. This would be anything relating to the admin committee. Go ahead and unmute.
Hello, am I being heard?
You are, Harvey. Go right ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Hi there. I'm Harvey Itter. I'm speaking for myself and for Public Solar Power Coalition, etc. You know, we've been coming to the Air District since 1985, and the first quote in the plan was an 88 conversations with staff over the solar and the plans and whatnot. Y'all been backsliding since plans 40 years ago plus, and more recently on solar. Okay, we've brought this up and litigated with y'all. Okay, things are not going well in River City or up in the North City. Speaking with EPA Regional Manager Anita Lee for a couple of months, she said there was no communication with her legal staff and staff here, as was referred to in the record at a couple of board meetings. Also incorporating by reference the administrative committee meeting, this group, from February 8th of 2019, where there's extensive discussion with me and Dr. Burke, mostly Dr. Burke, saying that he said, God knows how long you've been talking about solar and this and that, and they putting a footnote in here, a paragraph there, and he goes, that is not enough. We brought up the California Supreme Court case in 12, and it's related to backed and bark, the best available retrofit control technology. We totally got purged there with y'all. It is cost effective. We brought all this stuff from DOE and the Sunshot program model after the Moonshot from the 60s. It's all cost effective. You never put it into your plan. You never evaluate it for the SIP. We have this stuff in, and we can't even get the record. You won't help out on getting evidence and etc. The tape from December 3rd. Now, Dr. Burke said, you've been bringing this stuff up, and as far as I can tell, you must be right because nobody's disagreed with you. All right. This is a guy who managed the heavyweight boxer of the world and knew him for 50 years. All right. So thinks of adversarial situation. That is true. And he also said, we can't ignore the public. We are and have been on solar environmental stuff with this district of public for 36 years. All right. And before that with the PUC and CEC, et cetera, and different counties and local governments and whatnot. We started the Alternate Energy Co-op in Santa Cruz, and Will started in Berkeley at the same time. We were the first environmental study student in 1970, got a living Christmas tree in the White House, accepted by the first head of EPA, who was also in 74 on the committee. He was Attorney General and quit the Saturday Night Massacre, and then under Reagan in 81, head of EPA. All right. So stuff needs to be done. They say that.
Thank you, Harvey. Any other public comment? I'm not seeing any other hands raised. Thank you, board members. With that, that concludes our meeting. Our next meeting will be September 10th at 10 o'clock. And also thanks to staff for doing a great job this morning on the meeting. We want to have a great weekend as we get into that. And any other comments, go right ahead.
No, just have a great weekend, everybody.
Take care, Ben. Take care, staff.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Bye.